The film opened in 1906, during the 32nd year of the Guangxu Empire in China, with a brutal and chaotic scene. The residence of a respected regional leader was being overrun in a violent attack orchestrated by a ruthless bandit leader named Cain, whose goal was to wipe out the entire family and seize power for himself. Amidst the slaughter, the leader's young son, Arthur, was seen running frantically through the streets, banging on his neighbors' doors and pleading for help, but no one answered. The townspeople, terrified of the bandits, refused to even look out their windows, and the young boy was left completely alone as his family was massacred. 20 years passed. The world was now even more chaotic, with rival bandit gangs running rampant and preying on the weak. In this harsh new reality, the adult Arthur had become a hardened martial arts expert and a cynical gun for hire, making a living with his two partners, Marcus, the big quiet muscle, and Finn, a feisty and reliable hothead. One morning, they were seen running a protection racket, shaking down a local businessman who was being harassed by a rival gang. After easily dispatching the other thugs and collecting their fee, the trio stopped by a local tea stall for breakfast. There, they were approached by an elegant and mysterious woman named Eleanor, who, without the slightest of hesitation, took the drink owned by the three and drank it. After some initial small talk, Eleanor got straight to the point. She had witnessed Arthur's skill in the fight earlier and wanted to hire him and his crew for a high-stakes job, a contract killing. Arthur was unimpressed until she mentioned the payment, a 10-kilo bar of solid gold. This was a life-changing amount of money. As a down payment to prove she was serious, she took off her own heavy 24-karat gold bracelet and slid it across the table. Intrigued by the massive payout, Arthur accepted the job and asked for a sketch of the target. Eleanor instructed him to travel to a village called Fanjing, located on the other side of a nearby mountain. The next day, Arthur and his crew made the journey to Fanjing village. They arrived at Eleanor's surprisingly large and well-kept home. There, they met Eleanor's young adopted son, a boy who'd been left orphaned after his own parents were killed by bandits several years ago. After they had settled in, Eleanor finally revealed the mission's target. In a shocking twist that left the seasoned mercenary speechless, she told Arthur that the person he had been hired to kill was none other than herself. She explained the impossible situation she was in. To save her village and her adopted son from being crushed by the region's ruling bandit clan, she had been forced into an arranged marriage with the clan leader's sadistic son, a man named Victor. She knew that a horrific life of abuse awaited her after the wedding. Her plan was as desperate as it was deadly. She wanted Arthur to assassinate her on her wedding night, specifically after the marriage vows were complete, but before the marriage could be consummated. She believed this act would spare her a fate worse than death and potentially spark enough chaos to break the bandits' hold on the region for good. The story shifted to introduce the father of the groom, Victor, a bald and ruthless local warlord named Silas. He was shown attending a meeting with regional officials as a representative for his own powerful boss. After the business was concluded, Silas invited the officials to attend the wedding of his only son, Victor. When the officials responded with dismissive arrogance, Silas dropped his diplomatic facade. He showed them his true bandit nature, using quiet, brutal intimidation to make the pampered officials tremble, reminding them exactly who held the real power in the region. Back in Fanjing village, a somber, traditional pre-wedding cleansing ritual was being held for Eleanor. The entire village attended, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that she was sacrificing herself for their safety. The quiet ceremony was shattered by the arrival of Silas and his men who had come to collect the bride. When her family tried to hide her, Silas, in an act of pure cruelty, ordered one of his men to torture Eleanor's young adopted son, pulling out the boy's fingernails one by one. Hearing the child's screams of agony, Eleanor could no longer stay hidden. She came out and surrendered herself to save the boy and her village. The next day, Arthur and his crew made their plan. Their mission was not to save Eleanor in a traditional sense, but to infiltrate the wedding and fulfill the grim contract she had hired them to complete. They made their way up to the mountain fortress where the wedding was being held, a massive gathering of the most cruel and notorious bandit gangs from all across China. The atmosphere was chaotic and dangerous. The so-called guests, having no manners, were already fighting amongst themselves over something as simple as who got the best seats. Amidst the chaos, the main boss finally appeared, the warlord who ruled over all the other clans. Arthur looked at the man's face and was hit with a jolt of pure shock and recognition. The man standing before him was none other than Cain, the same bandit leader who had slaughtered his entire family and seized control of his home 20 years ago. The man whose son was getting married was working for his life's greatest enemy. Before the ceremony could begin, Cain announced that not everyone was worthy of entering. He had prepared a game to select the true warriors. One of his aides walked to the edge of a high cliff and threw a handful of silver coins into the ravine below. Only those who could fight their way through the crowd, find a coin, and return with it would be granted entry to witness the wedding. What followed was a barbaric free-for-all. The various bandit gangs immediately turned on each other, a violent, bloody brawl breaking out as they fought and killed one another over the scattered coins. Dozens of lives were lost in a matter of minutes for the simple price of admission to a wedding, a brutal spectacle that Arthur and his friends now had to navigate if they were to complete their mission. During the chaotic brawl to find the silver coins, the trio's true natures were on full display. Marcus, the big man who was afraid to fight, simply played dead amidst the dozens of corpses until the coast was clear, then snatched a coin from a fallen bandit. Finn, the hothead, engaged in combat but only injured his opponents enough to take their coins, showing he wasn't a cruel killer. Their methods were a testament to their philosophy. They were bandits out of necessity, to survive, not to kill for power. After they presented their coins as entry tickets, they ran into another problem when the guards couldn't find their names on the guest list. Thinking fast, Arthur used his sharp wits and the lure of a gold bribe to get them past the final checkpoint. The long-awaited moment finally arrived. Eleanor was brought to the wedding altar to meet her future husband, Victor. But as the veil was lifted, the invited guests, and Eleanor herself, gasped in horror. Victor was a corpse. His father, Silas, had been preserving his dead son's body for an unknown amount of time, and this entire wedding was a ghoulish ceremony to officially bring Eleanor into their family. Immediately after the vows, the guards placed a stunned Eleanor into a large, ornate coffin and took her to a storage room, leaving her next to the coffin of her new dead husband. Later, one of the lecherous guards decided he would take advantage of the bride before she was disposed of. But as he approached her coffin, strange noises came from the groom's coffin next to her. It was Marcus, who had snuck in as part of their rescue plan, pretending to be Victor's ghost. The two terrified guards ran screaming from the room to report the incident. With them gone, Marcus got down to business, but instead of immediately freeing Eleanor, the big man, who had a secret crush on her, lied and said it was safer for her to stay in the coffin for a while. He then used the opportunity to try and impress her with his singing skills. His terrible serenade, however, was heard by the returning guards, and it was Finn who had to burst in and save them both from the embarrassing and dangerous situation. While his friends were handling the rescue, Arthur remained in the main hall, carefully monitoring his true target, the warlord Cain. An opportunity to get closer presented itself when a drunken bandit started causing a scene. The intelligent Arthur volunteered to handle the troublemaker, and his display of lethal shooting skills greatly impressed Cain, who even gifted him his own personal ornate pistol as a sign of respect. Arthur's prowess didn't just catch the eye of the warlord, it also captivated Cain's beautiful and powerful younger sister, Julia. She was further amazed later that night when she watched him dominate a high-stakes gambling game. Completely infatuated with this mysterious and capable newcomer, Julia decided she had to have him. She boldly took him by the arm and began dragging him away towards her private chambers, pulling Arthur even deeper into the dangerous heart of his enemy's family. Upon arriving in her private chambers, the warlord's sister, Julia, continued to playfully tease Arthur, but her tone shifted as she realized he was there for more than just the wedding festivity. Seeing that she was not like her cruel brother, Arthur revealed his true purpose. He wasn't there to harm her, but to find evidence of Cain's corrupt dealings with government officials. Disgusted with her brother's tyranny, Julia made a choice. She sided with Arthur, giving him the key to a hidden safe, where Cain kept a list of all his secret agreements. However, as Arthur made his way to the safe, he was confronted by Cain's fiercely loyal second-in-command, a deadly fighter known for his mastery of knives. A brief but intense duel broke out, but Arthur, not wanting to kill a man who was simply doing his duty, managed to disarm and injure the man without taking his life. After regrouping with his friends, Arthur told Marcus and Finn to escort the now-rescued Eleanor down the mountain to safety while he stayed behind to finish his business with Cain. But his friends, loyal to a fault, refused to leave him behind. Forced to let Eleanor make her own way to safety, the trio prepared for the final confrontation. They found Kane in his throne room, about to assault one of the female entertainers. They interrupted him, and the final battle kicked off with the hot-headed Finn charging in first, only to be quickly outmatched by the powerful warlord. Arthur then told his friends to find the incriminating documents while he kept Kane busy in a one-on-one fight. Marcus and Finn located the safe, retrieved the list, and then rejoined the fray to help their friend. But Kane's skill was on a completely different level. He easily defeated both of them, and Arthur had to intervene to save their lives. The fight continued, with Arthur using only his bare hands against the warlord. He finally gained the upper hand when he spotted a spear. With his favored weapon now in his hands, he managed to corner Kane, turning the tide of the battle. Not willing to give up, Kane got back to his feet and launched a final desperate series of attacks. But Arthur, a master of spear combat, easily parried every blow. In a final dramatic moment, he showed Kane an old insignia from his family's village, embroidered on his clothing. It was then that the dawning horror of recognition spread across the warlord's face. He finally realized who he was fighting, the lone surviving son of the leader he had slaughtered 20 years prior. The realization seemed to break his spirit, and he could only accept his fate as Arthur delivered the final vengeful blow. The other warlord, Silas, discovered the body of his powerful, superior, and great teacher, Kane, lying lifeless on the floor. Enraged by the death of his leader, Kane, Silas ordered all the bandit clans to hunt down Arthur and his men, promising a priceless gold reward for their heads. Meanwhile, Eleanor had just made it back to her village, but instead of finding safety, she was met with fear and betrayal. The terrified villagers, not wanting any more trouble with the bandits, seized her and intended to drag her back up the mountain to hand her over. Arthur intervened, confronting the villagers and shaming them for their cowardice. He gave them a stark choice: flee the village while they still could, or stay and prepare to die because a war was coming. Just as dawn was breaking, Silas arrived with his massive army. He was surprised to find the village eerily quiet. As his adjutant shouted bluffs and threats into the silence, Arthur, Finn, and Marcus launched their counterattack. Arthur's incredible marksmanship picked off Silas's men one by one, leaving the warlord stunned. Furious at being outsmarted, Silas ordered all his troops to charge at once, hoping to overwhelm the small group with sheer numbers. But Arthur had a plan, directing Finn and Marcus to execute a flanking maneuver to attack the bandits from behind. A massive and chaotic gunfight ensued. In the heat of the battle, Silas managed to get a clear shot, wounding Arthur in the stomach. While the main fight raged, one of Silas's men found Eleanor's hiding place and tossed a bag of dynamite inside. Marcus, seeing the danger, acted without a moment's hesitation. He dove onto the dynamite, throwing it back to save her. He was killed instantly by the bullets coming from the enemies, a heroic sacrifice that left his friends devastated, but more determined than ever. Seeing his brother-in-arms killed, a furious Finn went on a rampage, charging directly at the man who had thrown the dynamite. In the brutal one-on-one fight that followed, the wounded Finn was almost overpowered by the larger man, but Eleanor emerged from her hiding place and helped him, repeatedly stabbing the man until he was dead. At the same time, the injured Arthur had his final showdown with Silas. Despite the gunshot wound in his stomach, Arthur's superior skill won out, and he finally killed the ruthless warlord, ending the battle for good. A few days after the tragic fight in Fanjing, a somber Arthur and Finn were shown visiting Marcus's grave to pay their last respects, joined by a grateful Eleanor. With his lifelong quest for revenge now complete, Arthur decided he was done with the life of a wandering bandit. He chose to return to his own long-forgotten hometown, intending to use his formidable skills to protect its people. Finally, coming full circle from the helpless boy who once begged his neighbors for help to the powerful man who could now provide it.